guys, welcome back to my YouTube channel. Today we're going to be talking about Onyx Storm, the third book in Rebecca Yarros' Fourth Wing series, and I'm going to do a spoiler-free section first, and then we're going to get into the spoilers. So starting out with the spoiler-free stuff, I did rate this book a 4 stars for like vibes and overall enjoyment throughout the book. 3.5 for quality and how much I enjoyed everything that happened, I guess. Now this is the third book in the series, so it's of course not finished yet. And ranking it in terms of the other books in the series, I would rank this as my second favorite with Iron Flame on the bottom. But truthfully, I just want to get into the spoilers because there's so much that happened in this book and honestly I didn't love it, so we're gonna get into all of that right now. If you have not finished Onyx Storm, please leave, save this video, come back later. Alright guys, so I did tab up, it's kind of hard to see because I used ones that you can't see a lot with the gray, but I did tab up my book and I have a lot of thoughts on it. I think the main thing is the ending did ruin a lot of the book for me, and I am a pretty well-read fantasy reader, so I'm not upset that we don't know everything. I'm not upset that we didn't find out answers to stuff. I wasn't expecting to really get a lot of answers in this book, except for her second signet, which we did get confirmation of what that was, but when it comes to just overall what we went through to get to the ending spot, it felt like we went nowhere and we kind of went backwards. A lot of people have been talking about the first like 25-30% and how confusing it was, and yeah, it definitely was confusing. I know a lot of people are like, oh, you just have never read high fantasy. No, like high fantasy does not have to be so confusing like this. There is a way to drop in new names and to talk about new things and to enter side plots and be so hectic and confusing like this was. It felt like some of it was like a little bit broken, and I just didn't love her writing style in the beginning personally. I think she's still figuring out how to write as a fantasy writer because she is a romance writer. She's not typically done fantasy in the past, so this is new territory for her as well. I felt like as the book went on, the information she was bringing to us that was still new was just way easier to digest and was not as confusing as the beginning. So if you were confused, it's not that you're not well read, it's not that you should read more fantasy. It was definitely confusing, and that's all right, and she's learning as an author, and it didn't ruin the book for me. Stuff started to make sense as it typically does, but just want to validate some people in that right there. Violet and Xaden's relationship. I mean, they were kind of disgustingly in love in this book, which was great. I enjoyed it, and I was very happy with their communication and their growth and the fact that they actually said I love you to each other back. That was awesome. I think all of that was really good. We're definitely very far into the I will burn the world for you territory and I care about nothing but you territory, which is good and not good because obviously there's an unhealthy part to that. But in general, I was happy with their relationship throughout the whole book. And I think this book really did focus a lot on Xaden and of course fighting off the fact that he has channeled and he doesn't want to become an Asim, which is the first level of the Venin. I liked seeing that struggle go throughout, but again, the ending felt like it just ruined everything for me, especially in that regard, because when we get to the end, we're at a spot where there's the final battle. It's kind of copy and paste from the book before. They're together, they get separated, and then of course Xaden ends up channeling. And the scene where him and Scale were talking, oh my gosh, broke my heart afterwards, because he is of course officially Venin now. There's no hiding it. He can't be around people without them knowing because he has the veins. But I guess necessary evil and all of that stuff, it just felt like we went through a lot of struggle and growth and great stuff for us to just be back to where we were at the end of Iron Flame, which is Xaden is Venin and he is just actually Venin this time. And like, there's no coming back from it. At least that's what they're making it seem like. But we'll see. I know that a lot of people are like, oh, the cure is going to be love. Honestly, yeah, I think the cure could be love. You know what else I think the cure could be? Sloane. In the first like quarter of the book, she literally says that she hates her signet and she wants to be able to do something for good and not just pull magic from things. And I was like, how have we not realized that maybe we should try Sloane like pulling out the magic from Xaden? I don't know. I feel like that was such an obvious thing and it didn't happen, and that kind of made me mad. But I'm like, maybe it'll happen in a different book. That would be great too. But I think that's a very easy, obvious thing that they could try. But if not that, I think it's going to be love because, of course, Venom aren't really supposed to have emotions. Still protecting Violet and in love with Violet, so we'll see where that goes. Let's get into some of the other things. So the whole quest for the different aisles and trying to find the Irids, I very much so enjoyed every time we were at a new aisle. We were finding out about the different gods, we were finding out all this, and that was where I think like she was doing such a good job at introducing new information. It was very interesting. All of those scenes were very entertaining. I absolutely loved them. But then we get to the end where we're finding the Irids, and basically, they're of course like, no, you're terrible to Andarna, you're the worst, like this is not what we raised you to be. Felt like everything that we went through was just pointless. And I know that there were certain aspects that weren't pointless because of course we found out about Xaden's mom, we found out about the Dune goddess and the Dune temple and everything like that. So there were still aspects of information that we needed in there, but the whole quest and the whole purpose of them going on the quest was to find them, and then for them to not help was just so entirely frustrating. But I was like, you know what? It's okay. Like, we're at a roadblock. It's gonna be fine. And then when the devastating scene came in where Andarna broke their bond and left, oh my gosh, I was so upset. But honestly, I was like, this is such a good plot point. I was like, oh my gosh, this is amazing. Like, yes, it sucks. I was literally sobbing, but it felt like everything that they went through wasn't for nothing, and it felt like, okay, we're gonna get some like longing for Andarna, and this is going to be great. Like, she's gonna come in and save the day in a later book, or maybe the next book, maybe the book after that. Like, there's gonna be some time away from that, and I was so excited about it. And I think that Rebecca really just tied that up way too quick, because at the end of the book she very anticlimactically comes back into the picture, and I was not happy about it at all. I wanted that to go on for way longer. It felt like the whole bond breaking scene and her leaving, and that was just for nothing, and it again made it feel like all of that quest stuff just wasn't the best, and that kind of sucked. That is one thing. I think Rebecca ties up conflict way too quickly. In Iron Flame, she had the cat drama with Violet, and they were just kind of like okay and kosher at the end. That could have been drawn out for so long. And then in this, same thing. It's like Andarna, that could have been drawn out for so long and could have caused for like a really solid book with some like solid emotions. And she just wrapped it up too quickly. Another one that I think she wrapped up too quickly was Theophany. I was like, wow, we're getting a real evil villain, difficult guy to defeat. Like, this is gonna be so good. I was thinking Theophany was gonna be like a long-term, like multi-book villain for the rest of the series. And that was so exciting to me. I was like, wow, we're gonna get a real evil person. And for her to just kill her like that so quickly at the end of this book, I was like, are you kidding me? There was so much potential there, it wasn't even funny. I would have honestly rathered this book been that Violet and Xaden were not able to defeat Berwyn and Theophany, and they had to go back to the Venin school, wherever the Venin are residing, and they had to go back to save everybody. And then the next book was us at the Venin school learning about them. Violet and Xaden are working together to like not succumb to the power, but they're also around them. And then we're finding out what the Venin's real agenda is, because there's definitely stuff we don't know about what their agenda is. And I'm super excited for that reveal. I think there's probably going to be some overarching like worse enemy, and they might have to work together or something. But the Venin definitely knows something that we do not know as readers, which is good. I love that. But I thought that would have been a very good veering into a very different direction for this book, but instead it just felt like we ended on the same exact note as we ended Iron Flame, which was annoying. We also now have, of course, another brother, somebody channeled that we don't know who that person is. I was thinking it was probably Bodhi, but now I'm thinking it might be someone from Violet's inner circle, just because Xaden does say that it was the last person he thought would channel. Now, they're of course secretly married, which, guys, I'm just gonna be so honest. This book did end on my least favorite tropes ever. My 3 top least favorite tropes she just created the trope trilogy of doom for me, because I really dislike separation trope, and now of course Xaden and Violet are going to be separated. I feel like the forgotten memory trope and how it all happened really made it so that we're not going to have Xaden's POV, and she's going to be able to get away with just doing Violet's POV until the end like she does in this book. Forgotten memory, which is also one of my least favorite tropes ever. It's different if the book starts out and you find out like a third or the fourth of the way through that like, oh my gosh, their memory's been wiped and they didn't know it. But now it's like she knows her memory's been wiped. She knows that Imogen wiped her memory and we don't know what happened. I hate that. I literally can't stand it. And then my third least favorite trope is surprise we're married. Off-page wedding. I want to see them get married. And I'm sure we'll get it, okay? We will. But just surprise we're married always irks me. I liked it in freaking ACOTAR, and I was okay with it in a section of Throne of Glass. But other than that, so mad. I won't say what characters because I don't want to spoil that for anyone who hasn't read those. But so in general, I was kind of annoyed at the end because those are my least favorite things. Going into some more things that I did enjoy though, I absolutely loved Imogen's chapter. I thought it was so well written. I was so into it, and seeing her bring out this new signet of hers, which is what I'm thinking is earth wielding or like rock wielding, something like that. But it does also reference her lineage, and we know that she is kind of obsessive about dyeing her hair. So I'm thinking she might actually be descended, like a direct descendant from one of the gods or goddesses. And when she said she was like opening up that channel to her home, that's wherever that god resides, which I think would be super, super cool. So that's kind of my theory with that, but we'll see. I'm excited to get more about Imogen. I think that the next book is heavily going to focus around theories and different characters developing other than Violet and Xaden, which I really, really enjoy. And I'm really hoping, because one of the worst things when you are writing a fantasy romance book, because yes, she is in more of the fantasy realm with this series, but it still is being marketed as a fantasy romance book. So if it's a fantasy romance, it still has to have romance in it. With Xaden and Violet be separated, it's not going to focus on that. However, she did introduce Dane and Sloane's little fling thing that is brewing, and I am so excited about it. If you guys missed it, because I know some of my friends missed it, there were 3 different scenes where Dane and Sloane had a moment. I am a Dane sympathizer, okay? He got put through the ringer at the Isle of the God of Luck, okay? Zinhale or whatever his name is. He got slapped. He was getting put through the ringer. So now, Rebecca has already said she likes Dane, and she has now introduced a love story for him. So there's one part where Violet is looking at them and she's like, oh my gosh, it looks like Sloane wants to kill, I can't tell if she wants to kill him or ... And it said Sloane's cheeks were flushed and everything. So at first I was like, oh my gosh, Sloane and Dane, this is so exciting. But I was like, we probably won't get anything else. We got more. Next part, it was when I think they came back from one of the missions or something, and Sloane ran in super angry, and Dane runs in behind her and like picks her up by her waist and pulls her back, and she's like kicking and screaming, turns over and she's like punching his chest, and he's just letting her and he's just taking it, and then he like bends down and whispers something in her ear, and she like calms down, and they like look at each other and make eye contact, and she's like, okay. And so like he calmed her down in that moment. I was like obsessed, actually obsessed. And so then the last moment, of course, was at the end when Mira has her throat slit and she is dying, and Brennan's trying to fix her, and Sloane comes over, takes power from Dane to give to Brennan to kind of charge him up. And she looks at Dane and she says, I'm going to hurt you. And he says, Gods, don't I know it? And you know that he's not referring to actual pain. You know he's like, oh, he's just head over heels for this girl, and it's a little bit of a, she doesn't like him and she's mad at him, but he's like, he falls first. Like Dane fell first for this girl. I am so for it, so obsessed with it. It was by far one of my favorite things, but it wasn't my top favorite thing. And the last thing that I'm really going to get into was Mr. Riddick first of all, he's hilarious, which we all know. But he had this moment when he found out that Xaden was Venom and him and Violet went to talk. I was sobbing because it was the first time that it really hit me too that, wow, like, we're in a bad situation and everyone feels like they're kind of protecting Xaden and not fully protecting Violet. And he's like, Violet, you need people who are your friends who are going to be worried about you and protecting you. He said the whole, I know that like I come off as a funny, like stupid guy, but I wish people would start taking me seriously because I know what's going on. Their whole dialogue back and forth from that, I was literally crying because I was so happy, and I feel like he just had the most character development throughout this book out of everyone. So I'm glad that she's finally bringing in the character development for the sides. I think that she can continue to do it more. Poor Kat has been through the absolute ringer. She finally gets over Xaden, and then the guy that she starts dating gets shot with an arrow through the heart. It was just ridiculous, some of the things that was happening. But again, overall, I enjoyed reading the book while I was reading it, but the lack of where we got to and the lack of plot moving and how almost everything that happened in this book ended up being pointless and almost for nothing at the end was super upsetting to me, and it felt like I did kind of just waste reading all of that and getting into it because of course I am reading for vibes, but I also am reading for the plot of the book, the quality of the book. Does it have a plot? Yes, of course. They're going on quests, they're doing things, they have a purpose throughout all of this. But when you're looking at the overarching plot of the whole entire series, we really didn't move forward. Violet's signet, yeah, she's a dream walker. Like, that was such an anticlimactic review. I am glad that I was correct though, that she was an intrinsic, some sort of type of intrinsic. But then also, like, the bond breaking didn't make sense. I know we're not supposed to make sense of a lot of it, and we will later down the line. But you do have a point with a series where stuff needs to be worth it that's happening. There's a difference between, oh my gosh, they worked so hard and they're getting knocked down again, and oh my gosh, they worked so hard and what happened was just kind of stupid and the same thing that happened in the last book. That's just my opinion, guys, and I just want to say this is all my opinion. Reading is subjective. You do not have to agree with me. I am totally okay if you don't agree with me and you want to talk about it. I love talking about books and talking about theories and different opinions on it, but ultimately my opinion isn't wrong, just like someone who absolutely loved this book's opinion isn't wrong. But for me, that is going to be my final review of Onyx Storm by Rebecca Yarros. I will be reading the fourth book. I'm okay to wait for a while. Yes, we have a cliffhanger, but I will survive. I'm kind of just happy to be done with it right now because I went crazy tabbing and reading for 3 days straight, and here we are. Would love to know your thoughts, how the book went for you. Let me know in the comments.